Well, good evening yet again, our GT racers, and Merry Christmas to you all. Here we are again after the small Christmas break. I hope you all had a lovely time with your family and friends over the last few days, but now we are back to a little bit of work to burn off those Christmas calories. Who do you think tonight is going to be able to pull off the win, to be able to pull off those calories and the superb prize offered to us by the Nopinz racing team? So tonight, after our great race last week, we are on a great sounding course called the Sugadoo Loop, and this is a race course based in the Isle of Man. It's a loop race this time, so previously we had a point to point, and this loop is a 9.2 kilometer loop starting off on the Toby Road, climbing up towards Bride there, heading around the corner and then forming the loop back into Torrey Strait. So this is a 9.2 kilometer loop, a total race of 38.08 kilometers and a complete total climbing of 602 meters that forms the 2 laps. Last week we had a fantastic race last week, and again last week was dominated by attacks and breaks. Gringo taking his second win in a row to take a commanding lead in the head of the platinum of the, sorry, he doesn't actually take the lead at all, but played a great part in bringing Nopinz All 3R racing team up in the standings in the team league. So currently we have 2 leagues, the Gold Platinum League and the Silver Bronze League. Leading the Gold Platinum League is Restart Racing with 705 points. ECKD joint top with 705 points too, both being closely hunted down by the Nopinz All 3R e-racing team, and I'm fairly sure that Gringo tonight will be back on his full attacking duties trying to get ahead of the game. And there's the Nopinz team there. You can see Mark Swatton, who does a lot of the work behind the scenes, as manager of the team. Zach Connor, who we saw attacking last week. Chris Gringo Smart, everyone knows him as Gringo, who was on our Zoom last week. Eric has yet to make any appearances. Klaus as well, yet to make any appearances. Liam was there last week, putting in a great TT effort and making a fantastic bridge over to the front group. Matt Lucker, normally very strong, good sprint. He's been in about, he's not around there tonight. And SB has yet to get a pass out from his missus, because this is just pretend racing and therefore doesn't count in being able to be busy. But there you go, that's the Nopinz team who will be racing tonight and who are closely chasing down, hot on the heels of Restart led by Matt Smart and ECKD led by the very aggressive and very strong Rasmus Fellballer. So 24 seconds to go before they go. Now we'll talk you through the course as we go around, and I'm fairly sure that we will see, as usual, massive red numbers at the start of this race. And this race actually starts on a very slight uphill this week. Previously there have been some downhill races, but this one starts on an uphill, so I'm fairly sure from the start, as we can see, almost like a rocket, kind of a catapult kind of start from the guys there, and we can see them all seem to be getting off safely. Tim Cook, who captains the Race 3R team, setting the pace in the early stages. John Beams, who promised this week that he would be up there, putting himself at the start of the pack and making these attacks, he's there as well. And as we can see, all of the racers, after putting it into the red zone to get onto the road, safely trying to get themselves into the pack for the first bit of the ride. We can see the usual names up there: Scott Gleason from Nopinz, John Beams is there, Fellballer of always will be there, Clace is there as well. We're nice to see Jamrajit's back as well after his week 1 win. Nice to see him back in the scene. It'll be interesting to see if there's a little battle between him and Gringo tonight for the win. So this front group, we can see just starting to put a little bit of effort in now at this first little bank. I'm fairly sure what we'll see is these guys trying to split some guys off the back, see where they can cause a bit of a split. And we can see in the top right hand corner there the map, the course map, the profile, and we can already see some of those red dots just dropping off the back. That's either riders who didn't get a great start off the start, who trainers may have not paired, not reading the watch correctly, just like having a technical on the line. And that really means that they're going to have a difficult race heading in to this event. So this is the 4th event in this series, and this week it's back to the loop course, and we've got a change of scenery this week. So this week we're on the Isle of Man. Anybody know who was a famous rider from the Isle of Man? I know who you're all thinking. I can see it, I can hear it, but no, you're wrong. It's not the Manx missile that is Mark Cavendish. It's the Manx man, Matt Lucker, who unfortunately can't be here on his home race night. I'm fairly sure he's still feasting on the remains of his Christmas dinner from Saturday. But so this course is an interesting course. So this is essentially made up of 2 kind of smaller hills, one little, one large. But this will not be funny for those who are trying to lug those extra Christmas pounds up the hills. This course just starts outside of the Stony Mountain plantation in the heart of the island. And the island's actually surprisingly quite a hilly little place, but this course has got a few little digs to it, but nothing too dramatic. After the start, it heads south along the Tossabee Strait towards St Mark's, with a slow and steady climb for the first kilometre or so, which we've just about passed, maxing out about 4%, before rolling downhill, which is what we can just start to see now, and then they will start climbing again to a second peak at St Mark's. Taking a sharp left, we will then descend a little, head north and then to the steepest part of the course, 4 kilometres in, with an 8 to 9% gradient, where I'm sure we'll see the first of the big attacks on this lap. It continues to climb up to Bride. Now, I apologise for the pronunciation, but it's got Braid with double A, and really not sure how to pronounce that. So anybody on Facebook, any Manxers out there, please get me right with the pronunciation. And then this turns towards the Arkelligan plantation, continuing to climb up the Stugadoo climb, which is a tough 1-minute effort, and I'm fairly sure again we'll see a second set of attacks happening up that climb, followed by a small breather, and then they have to climb for a further 2 kilometres of rolling climbing on a couple of kickers, topping it at the highest point of the course at around about 177 metres before starting to descend back to the start-finish straight. This course in real life is part of the Manx circuit, and it always creates a breakaway, so it'd be interesting to see whether we get the same kind of effect on this virtual platform. Obviously the courses on RGT are real life representations of the real life roads. The superb Magic Roads facility allows you to turn any GPX into virtual roads, so what the guys are feeling out there today will be exactly what they would feel out in the Isle of Man. Apart from the elements, the wind, the rain, the Manxmen shouting at you, the kind of thing that you'd expect to see on any road race. So this should be a great race. Last week we saw Gringo take a second win in a row on the Bideford to Croy point-to-point course. Race 3R were massively aggressive last week, calling on. We saw every single rider from the team putting out some effort last week, and they put out attacks throughout the race to wear out the opponents, giving little chance for the other teams to flex their muscles really. The likes of EKD, who've had big numbers in, John Beams and his Peddlers team, they've always been aggressive. Tom Giggs there from the draft team, he was there or thereabouts last week as well. But this week I'm sure the likes of Beams, Blodgett, Swart, Gringo, Feldballer, Hiab, all of his around will continue to put the pressure on with attacks throughout this race, which is pretty much set up for lots of attacks with all these little kickers that we can see. So will we see a different team try to dominate this week? ECAD normally have the numbers and are well placed in the tables, leading the silver bronze from OTR and second in the platinum gold to Restart Racing, with Nopinz hot on their heels. So we can see now how this front group has broken down a lot of the pack. We've got these small groups disappearing down the road, and we've got the names that we would expect to see in this front group. Gringo's up there, Liam Bard's up there for Nopinz R3R, Stock Gleason's there as well. And we can just see this 8% kick that we were talking about. So Liam Bard, you can see everyone is hitting red numbers. So everyone's working hard up here. Nobody wants to get dropped from this front group today. I think people all know that this is going to be a few tough little climbs. So there are going to be some elements of respite in here. But Liam putting in a big shift in the front there, 488 watts on the left hand side, leading the pack all the way up the field. Liam's got a really good ability to maintain power for a long period of time. He's a classic TT rider, and we can see from the overhead shot how we've just seen a couple of breaks. Thank you SB, Stephen Briley there, one of the Nopinz guys, asking if I'm keeping my vocal cords lubricated. I am, but today I'm off the booze today, SB. I'm on the coffees today. just to keep myself nice and alert, keeping my beer. I've had a few beers this weekend. I've had a bit of red wine, bit of jam jar. It's my favourite red at the moment. Loving that. It's a bit sweet, a bit of body air. It's look out for that jam shed. Sorry, not jam jar, jam shed. It's a great bottle of red. Anyway, so none of that tonight. Coffee tonight for me, just to kind of keep me alert and awake, ready for all of these fantastic attacks that we're going to see there tonight. A big shout out there for Peddlers. Peddlers, led by John Beams, have been really aggressive. John's been leading the team fantastically in the series so far. Wasn't so happy they didn't get much of a shout out for his attacking last week, so I've asked him to rise to the challenge and put himself to the front today until they'll see some more of that wonderful pain face that he pulls out on his Zoom cam. Gringo, true to form, heading out in the front, being joined by this Nopinz R3R team. We can see the Nopinz guys have actually got their strip in game now. So we can see this is the Nopinz real life strip, and what a thing of beauty it is. Designed by one of our riders, Dan O'Shea, who's a graphic designer. I think he was having a migraine the day that he designed that shirt, looking at the amount of colour in there. But it's a fantastic looking shirt, and I have one of these myself. Not because I'm a Nopinz rider, purely because I did a lot of work behind the scenes for them when they first set out. Now I just commentate on their awesomeness on the road. Dakana alongside Gringo, putting some effort in at the front, with Scott Gleason, 3 very strong race 3R riders taking it to the rest of the pack. Swart there, great to see Mike Swart up in the front. Mike is actually the lead designer for the RGT DB site, which is essentially the repository for all of the results of these RGT races. So Mike's done a great job there. Still a work in progress, so Mike is always very open to suggestions on how we can bring this site to life and really increase its richness now that we're seeing so many more events on this wonderful racing platform that all of the racers love to race on. Ask any racers which platform they love to race on. A lot of them will say RGT because of the fantastic race dynamics that they have. New name in the front there, Dallaire, racing for Restart Racing with Mike and a few other riders there in Restart. Good show in there, the front group. And in the moment what we can see is this front group seems to be dominated by 2 teams. We've got a lot of riders from Nopinz and we've got a lot of riders from R3R, but we're not seeing the ECKD numbers that we normally see. I wonder why that is tonight. The likes of Felbella would normally be up there. He's in there, the front pack, but not really joined by any of his ECKD colleagues, which we've seen so many times in the races before in the past. Now, I can't believe that is due for delivered. I'm fairly sure this must be due to availability, because for the last 3 weeks we've seen ECKD putting in big numbers, big efforts from Felbella. Highball's been in there. Gottlieb in the first week, he was extremely aggressive. Klaus Bering's been there as well. Fleming back 2 weeks ago, he was very pivotal to breaking this front pack up, and we just don't see these ECKD riders in there today. But Nopinz R3R, same as it did last week, taking it to these races and trying to put the pain on really early on in this race. We haven't even finished the first lap and we can see how much this pack has broken down. John Beams, lovely to see John in there. Is that a new top the Peddlers have got, or is that an old top they've got? That looks like a new top as well. I'm liking that, John. Like the couple of pedals in the back, simple, straightforward, very bright. Liking that, John. Good effort. John promised to be more attacking this week, so let's see what he does. Again, John's on his own, so we've got ECKD, we've got Felball on his own, no team support around him. We've got John Beams on his own, no team support around him. So will these guys actually go all out, go hell for leather and just try and go for the win, or will they sit in the draft, try and just nick the win by hanging on to the R3R Nopinz tails? But here we can see an aggressive break from Zach Harner and Gringo from Nopinz, putting in a good 40 meters to Jamrazik, who was our first week winner, and another 30 meters to the chasing pack, led by Scott Gleason, who won't be in any great hurry to chase his teammates down. Joe Jamrazik bridging over to the front too, so this could set itself up for a very, very, very interesting race. This might end up being a 2-man race between Gringo and Jamrazik. Jamrazik, as we can remember, was one of our more aggressive in the first week. pushed off to a fantastic win, and then Gringo again for 2 weeks running. So will Jammasic be able to close that down and make it 2-2? John Beams there putting a lot of effort into the front of that chasing pack, trying to close this gap down. Still kind of sitting in a comfortable 4.2 watts per kilogram, maybe just biding the time. This is a downhill section, so the downhill section, this bigger pack of riders will have that very slight draft advantage over those racers in front. So this is the descent back down to the home finish straight. So this will slowly descend down for another kilometre or so. So we need to hang on to the tails there, don't drop off the back, because the draft dynamics in RGT are so realistic. If there's a gap between you and a pack, you absolutely spat out the back like nobody's business. So you want to make sure that, yep, take it easy, but make sure that you're hanging onto the wheels in front. So this front pack, what they're riding at speed wise. So front group there, they're riding at 57 kilometers an hour. Liam Bard there, after doing a huge amount of work at the start, just dropping back down into 15 pace. Liam very aggressively breaking that front pack up and paying the price of that, alongside Jan Vanner, who had a great result last week for race 3R, and Neil Turner. But we can just see the difference in these hillier courses. Last week was mainly flat. We had a very long flat section, and that held all of the riders together, giving some of these silver bronze and some of these not so strong riders the chance just to hang in on the coattails of the stronger riders, just kind of get the breather. And then these small punchy climbs allowed them just to be able to work a little bit and hang on in the front. Today, completely different profiles of the course, and we can just see what that's done to the pack. The stronger riders have really broken down these riders who weren't quite as strong and broken it down into small packs. Thanks, Christoph. Allez, Daniel, mate, you are the strength. So, Daniel, again, one of the restart racers. Or it could be Daniel from Nurgelbauer from Pedalers. Christoph's a very strong pedaler, so I'm assuming it's Daniel Nurgelbauer who he's talking about, rather than Daniel Jammasic, who's up there with the front. Christoph, please feel free to correct me if I am wrong. And we got some good shout outs as well for other teams too, but Pedalers have always got a great bit of support in these events, which is always fantastic to see. And we've also got great support for the Nopinz R3R guys. There's the front three again. Zach Horner up into the red, Jammasic in the green, Gringo in the yellow. Those coloured bars give us a good indication about how hard these riders are working. This little kick at 3.8%. This is really just a little smash, this 1 minute climb that we were talking about. Good little climb there, 1 minute effort just to kind of get up there, get over the top, and get over the other side to have a bit of a breather. One of our cameramen there sitting nicely, chasing along. Here's the chasing pack. We can see the double screen there on the top left hand side there. We can see the front three, we can see the chasing pack, and currently that gap is 100 meters and just seems to be growing, despite that downhill section where the bigger group would have had the draft advantage. So as we saw before, the chasing pack now hitting this 4.6% incline, putting in those little punchy efforts, going up into the red zone, wanting to break this front pack down a little bit. But really, if they break it down too much, that will go against their advantage. Maybe they know that the front three are away and they're not going to be caught, even though we have just pretty much gone through the first lap barrier. So now on to the second lap, lap 2. Back with the front three, Gringo, Jammasic and Horner. Will the Nopinz guys work together, or will Jammasic take it to them and start putting a little bit, see if anybody can, do you reckon anybody can put the hurt on Gringo, or do you think Gringo's going to just sit in there and put the hurt on Jammasic when he needs to? What do you think, guys? I think it'll be a great fight between these two. I wouldn't be able to call this, I don't think, to be fair. After last week, not seeing Jammasic for the last few days. Eric shouting out for Nopinz, thank you very much, Eric. Eric is on my team. I'm team captain for in the inter-club championship. Eric, very sensibly, true professional, taking time out from these RGT races to come and sit in the magnificent Maltese team 4 in the R3R Interclub Championship. Fully expecting to go through to victory, not commentating because, generally speaking, when I'm racing, I'm generally dying. Back with the chasing pack, starting to get some little attacks here. Be interesting to see whether this pack breaks up, and if it does break up, those front 3 are home and dry. There's absolutely no chance this chasing pack will be able to close that down if it breaks up any more than it currently is doing at the moment. Maybe these guys are racing their own race. Maybe they know that that front 3 are going to prove difficult to catch, and we can see that gap's now up to 200 meters. So is anybody going to be able to chase that down? Liam Bard and his pack have managed to chase it down there to the second group, I think, by the looks of things. So it looks like that for a second group is actually growing in size as some of these smaller groups attack back on again, and we can see there's a big gap between groups 1 and 2, and then there's another great gap between groups 2 and then smaller groups, no doubt chasing behind. All those little white dots on the top are all either individual riders or little groups of riders clumped together. They're only going to really make any headway if they're clumping together, but it's very likely that these riders are going to be racing their own race. And there we can see in group 3 some of these chasing riders. Ostergaard there in the third group from ECKD, joined with Pedersen as well. So the ECKD riders are there, but just not up in the front group this week, so not challenging for the win. Tom Gakes, and this is where we can see Tom last week had a fantastic result last week. Backs in there as well, so the ECKD riders have obviously had a very sumptuous Christmas. They've obviously been indulging heavily in the wine, cheese and biscuits and sweet onion and fig chutney, not allowing them to hold the pack on the front group. Kevin Bartley there from OTR. Kevin's one of the stronger riders, hasn't really managed to show what he's able to do yet. He's kind of been in and about those, that front third of the race, hasn't really been able to put the pressure down. And Tim Cuckoo we saw go off like an absolute bullet at the start of this race, gradually dropping back into 27th alongside the wonderfully named Smitheru 89 from the US of A. Nice jersey that, I like that red stripe across there. It looks very American, and I'm fairly sure I can see some American flag on there as well. Very patriotic, like that. Lennox, they're riding from restart down to 36, and we can just see some of these little riders. There's the Daniel Nergebauer, who I think Christoph may have been talking about. Can he chase back onto these two with Lennox and Dulac? Little attacks going in by those two. They're going to and there's Blodgett again, one of the restart riders, was a great support rider last week. We put in a lot of attacks last week to help Mike Swart out. Blodgett's just not quite being able to hit the pace, and Helveg, another ECKD rider. So we've got these riders spread all the way around the course, which was going to happen, giving so punchy, and we will see these. We'll see a lot of these little groups break up, and we'll see other groups formed all the way through this race, and each one of these groups will be riding their own race, knowing that it's very unlikely that the group behind is going to catch, or they're going to catch the group in front. But still, they're not taking it easy. Look at those three there, putting in red numbers up these little climbs. These races want to race. Doesn't matter whether they're racing for first position, 10th position, 20th position, 51st position. It doesn't matter where you're racing for. Every single position that you get on the road gets you points. So Matt Looker on the chat. Thanks, Matt. Nice for you to check in. Feel free to come and join me on the commentary sometime if you're if you're not busy racing. So Matt expected Beams and Felbala and Clays to go for it next time up the kickers. Be interesting to see whether these actually manage to put these three guys under pressure. Will these three front guys just start easing off the pace a little bit, thinking that they've got an unassailable lead, currently 235 meters, or will they look behind and just try and maintain that gap as much as they possibly can? But you're right, Matt, that this chasing pack can't hang on too long before going for any attacks. The longer that they wait, the more it plays into the three front riders' hands. All three of them are all very strong, you know, if they will be able to respond. If they're taking it easy now, they'll be able to step on that gas in no time at all to really open that gap back up again. And I think what we'll probably find is that they will try and maintain this gap to the chasing pack to try and hold their overall advantage. Down into 57 position, really good numbers today. So they're down to position 62 there, so we've got at least 62 riders in the starting lineup today. A group of 5 riders, and yet again we can see orange, red, green numbers up this 3.2% slope, just about to peak at the top there now. So they're all working hard to try and just maintain that position, get some points for their team. ECKD currently doing extremely well in the points race, and they're currently joined first in the platinum gold alongside the restart team, and quite comfortably leading the silver bronze team with OTR in second position. Look at this, riders go all the way down, well, past 68, 69, and there we can see in position 69 is a great named Goldberg dash Y question mark. Now, is that Goldbergy or is that Goldberg Y? Is he racing? I'm sure he sometimes asked himself that. But in 69th position is Goldbergy. Now, last week we offered a prize for any of the riders that crossed the line. We put them all in a random spinner, span the wheel, and the winner of last week's spot prize was Goldbergy, who wins himself a Nopinz voucher just by finishing the race. So just by taking part is definitely worth it, because you never know what might happen. Well done, Goldbergy. Good effort. So you're the winner of last week's prize, and with that you get a Nopinz voucher to spend within their e-shop, and their kit is fantastic. And as you can see from Gringo on the Zoom call, he's wearing the Nopinz kit, a Sub-Zero kit, which is designed specially for indoor racing with little pockets for ice packs. And there's Chris there with his again looking comfortable. John, it's good to see John looking a bit more uncomfortable this week. John's looking working a bit harder there in the second group. Tom Gig still working hard as he did last week, hasn't quite got the same position the week. Gringo just kind of getting himself toweled down, getting himself ready for the next bit of effort while he's just sitting there cruising along at this 3.4 little incline. But Chris is wearing the Nopinz kit, which is designed for indoor racing. As I say, it's got little pockets for ice packs that you can stick in to keep yourself cool, and last week we saw him changing one of those ice packs. Up on his pedals there now, and Gringo is one of those riders that we can see just gets up on his pedals, quite happy to kind of stand up, drop his cadence, apply the power up these cadence. We can see starting to get some red numbers there, just dropping off again as the slope starts to drop off, coming up to the top of yet another small kicker ascent, 16.2 kilometers into the race. So we're not too far from halfway, and we've already got a commanding lead from the front pack. A breakaway, just as Matt Looker anticipated, the breakaway would be the win, and the breakaway happened very, very, very early on in the race, with some good attacking going on, and it was these three guys who broke free. First of all, it was Harner and Gringo. Jamazik did the right thing by jumping on the brake early, closing the gap down. Nobody came with them, so that means that we've got a front three leading this race around the Stuckard Who loop. Another concerted effort there from Zach Harner now, with these Nopinz guys wanting to try and break down Jamazik. That would not be a surprise if they were trying to put a little bit of effort in to try and get rid of this restart guy. Oxwatton on the chat. Gringo, Gringo. Whether that was the tune that you had in mind. Just freestyled it a bit there, Mark. Nice to have you on the chat. Gringo, again, doing some great work, and Gringo is actually probably not being as attacking this week, but then he doesn't need to. He's in the front three. These two guys who can put a bit, Zach will no doubt be working for him. And as you just might have just spotted there on that that corner, RGT has a really good facility where if you're coming into a sharp corner, it will automatically brake for you. And when it does that, your power numbers on the top left hand corner will go into red. So if you're currently trying to smash out 400 watts when that is going red, you're wasting energy, because RGT is auto braking for you. So just like in real life, it will slow you down heading into these corners, and you have to pedal back out of them, which is most unlike some of the other racing platforms where you can carry the speed all the way through even the tightest of turns. So after that little attack by the Nopinz guys, Jammasic takes the front. So this is brave work by Jammasic. He could quite happily just sit in here, let these Nopinz R3R guys do the work and kind of come around them at the finish, but he's doing his fair share. To be fair to him, certainly can't knock him for that. Mike Swart now looks like he is leading this chasing pack, and they are starting to put a bit of effort in. Scott Gleason there taking the front, Bill Bonner also taking a bit front. So now they're at that stage now where maybe the Nopinz R3R guys are thinking that the front three are far enough ahead to be able to take the front and start putting some attacks in. Otherwise, what you would find is that your teammates would not want to chase you. Now we can start to see a lot of attacks coming down this downhill slope. So this is quite brave attack, and this is sometimes a nice cheeky little move that you see, where sometimes somebody will put an attack in down a hill just when you're trying to get a bit of recovery. Somebody decides to put in a cheeky downhill, and pretty much the whole of the pack chasing will utter every single expletive you could possibly imagine, just as they're trying to have a bit of a breather, get a bit of a drink, and get some recovery ready for the next time. It's always a lovely cheeky move that, to be fair, I'm not very good at. I'm always too tired, but do like to chase them down. So the live leaderboard in the front, we got, as we expect, Gringo and Jammasic top two. Zach Harner, who was very aggressive last week up there. Be interesting to see whether Zach goes for the win or whether Zach will just help Gringo to his third win in a row. John Beams there heading up the chasing pack from Peddlers, with Mike Swart from Restart, and as well as quite a good showing from the Restart guys and quite a good showing from the Nopinz guys, with Felbella the only ECKD rider in that chasing pack. So it'll be interesting to see whether these bigger teams put in more of the work, or whether it's the individual riders such as John Beams and Felbella, who put in some work to get some extra points. All these places count for points. So certainly not taking it easy, as we can see. Certainly continuing to work very, very hard, and this is where we'll see some real tactical racing coming in this pack. That front three, we'll see some tactics, but it'll be different. Zach Harner yet again putting that little break on. Jammasic this time chasing him down. Gringo, undoubtedly, I've no doubt at all that Gringo will be able to chase this down. I think Gringo just wants to put Jammasic under a little bit of pressure. Zach Harner doing that work, or maybe Zach's got the the go ahead to go for it himself. Jammasic now with a counter attack, pulling off the front of Zach Harner, with Gringo and Harner just closely in his draft, in his wake down the hill. This little recovery section before they go back up the hill again. Back onto the Zoom call. Anybody out there, if you're racing in these series, it's always great to get you on the Zoom call. It adds a superb element to the racing. It's really good to see how these races do actually suffer, and unlike Mrs. Briley, who calls this, well, actually Mrs. Briley and then my wife for that matter, calls these pretend races, looking at some of the faces that these guys are pulling, looking at some of the efforts that they're putting on these pedals, it certainly is nothing pretend about this whatsoever. It's as real as it comes, and in fact probably working harder. There's no time to rest on the pedals. Even downhill, as you can see, you could freewheel, but we can see that these racers are attacking downhill, so you're still putting pressure on those pedals when you don't want to. Getting a fantastic workout and really maximising that training effort that you get. And racing amongst colleagues and racing amongst riders such as yourself is always a great way to increase that effort, as you just try and stay in the pack, try and create that breakaway, try and get those extra few positions, those extra few points for your team. Back to Group 2. So that gap is still growing. It's now at 500 meters and continuing to edge out. So I'll be very, very surprised if these guys do manage to chase down the front three, unless there's a very, very coordinated, concerted effort by all of the riders in the group. But that would be very surprising if they all took turns to took the front and really smash themselves out. I think they will let the front three race their race, and these guys will race their own race. But I'm expecting this to be fairly exciting. racing, I'm expecting some of these races to start putting in some attacks. We're now just over that halfway point. Without a Clays. Clays has been quite an aggressive rider the first two races, but it's first three races. But it's interesting to see just when you change the profile of the course, how it makes a massive difference to who actually can hold that power and stay in the front group, and who actually is better being in the second group. Some of these guys will be strong enough to be in that front group, just miss the jump. Some of these guys will be just strong enough to stay in this second group but be able to put in a really competitive effort. Top left hand corner there, we can see the actual power profile of these riders. You can see the power that they're pushing out, the cadence that they're riding at, as well as the heart rate that they're working along. Felbeller there, I think we're focusing on. I know Klemazowski we're focusing on there. Doesn't have a heart rate monitor, so in normal racing circumstances that would mean a disqualification in these races. If you can't provide any heart rate data, then there's no real idea of work knowing how hard you've worked. So yes, your watt gives an indication about how hard you're pushing on the pedals, but linked to your heart rate, that gives us a true indication of how hard you've actually had to work during the race, and that just adds to the validation of any efforts that you've put in, and therefore validates your results. So it doesn't matter how hard Klemagowski will work today, they will no doubt be disqualified from the results for the lack of a heart rate, leaving the rest of the riders to hoover up the points from this second group. So as I was saying, on the top left there, we can see the power that they're putting out, the cadence, and some of these riders will be spinning around at 90 to 100 RPM. Some of these riders will be slowly grinding at 70 or whatever, as well as the heart rate. All these guys will have a different maximum heart rate. We can also see that draft indicator. So the draft indicator gives you an idea of how much draft they're actually holding. Now there's an interesting change at the front. So where's Zakana gone? Where has he gone? Has he been jumped on by a bear as he's rounding the corner? Has he decided that he's got some Christmas pudding that's about to come off and he's had to jump off and get it? Has his wife called him in and told him off for doing pretend racing when he shouldn't be allowed to? Or has Zach suffered a very unfortunate technical failure and had a PC crash, which, to be fair, I've had plenty of those in my time. PC crash killing any race. The worst one is when you're 10 seconds from the start and your PC crashes. That's one of the most annoying things in the entire virtual racing world. But these things happen in real life. You have a puncture, back wheel falls off, chain snaps, you get some mud in your eye, socks don't look very good, race is over. So that front group's now down to 2 riders. So as we were predicting, as we said before, this could end up being a head-to-head between Gringo and Jamazik. What a fantastic finish this could be between these 2 riders who were absolutely dominated at the front of the start. But will that also mean that with having one less rider in the draft, this chasing pack has got a chance now of closing these guys down? What do you reckon? Do you reckon they're going to close them down? What do you think? Do you reckon they're going to do it? Or do you reckon that these front 3 are just too far ahead to actually close them down? That both of the front riders in the green, in the yellow now, kind of not taking it too hard at the moment. There's a little bit of easing off a little bit, sizing each other up. They've still got 14 kilometers go. Making a break now will be very difficult to stick, I think, with the strength of these 2 riders. So I'm fairly sure that these 2 will just tap it out, try and just kind of keep the legs working, try and keep the heart rate to a reasonable level. Just make sure that they're working hard enough to maintain that gap, but not too hard that they're going to blow themselves out for the end of race finish, which I'm fairly sure is going to be absolutely explosive. So do not go anywhere for the next 14 kilometers, guys. Chasing pack, still working hard. John Beams still looking like he's working hard. John's done a huge amount of effort on the front, which is great to see. He's risen up to the challenge that I gave him last week. John's actually taken the front on his own there without any pedaler support, alongside the Nopinz guys, so we're also starting to do a little bit more work now that they know that their rider's safe and dry out in the front and is unlikely to be chased down. So no Hendrik Mard this week to support John Beams, who was strong and who was very competitive in week 2, I think it was. Francis Lambert, who was quite strong in the second week, and Daniel Nürgebauer, who Christoph was talking about earlier on, a little bit further down the field. Back to the front two now. So these two guys are going to pretty much sit head to head. They're going to be toing and froing, having a little bit of conversation about how's Granny over Christmas. You know, was the turkey okay? You didn't go to Aldi and get a rancid turkey, and were all of your clementines in good nick, or did you have a couple of mouldy ones at the bottom of the box? And then from then they'll be just sizing each other up when they're getting their breath, little digs up these little hills, and then they'll be recovering together, no doubt. None of them, I think, will make a concerted effort in these little climbs, although, as we can see coming up in the next 0.5 of a kilometre, we're undoubtedly going to see some more attacks and a little bit more aggressive racing. Looks like they might be coming up to a few more dots up ahead of them. These are probably some of the riders who are really at the back of the course. We may actually see some riders get lapped today, which is not very often in this size loop. We'll see riders get lapped, but we may well see that this week. So back down to Group 2. This is kind of all over the road now. We're seeing different names on the front. We're seeing little attacks. Is anybody going to put in a real concerted effort on these little kickers? So we're now just reached the peak of that little kicker there now. We're going to head down the hill. Will we see the same little attacks that we saw in the last little kicker to try and break things up a little bit? And we can see on the left hand side there the power that these guys are putting out. Just a couple of flashes from the front two, Gringo, Jambazik. So they're obviously just starting to toy with each other up this little climb in and out of the red zone, not wanting to let the other one take dominance in that battle for the front of the race. There we can see those two just going head to head, getting out of the red and the chasing pack. And we're currently just coming to the bottom of this climb, up at 6%, coming up to 5.3% as well. This little incline, we should see some of these riders starting to put a bit of effort in. If anybody's going to make a breakaway now, these are the times to do it. And we can just see there on the left hand side, Gringo and Jamazik have actually started to lap some of the field, which means that they are really miles and miles and miles ahead of a lot of these races. And if you're racing here on an individual basis, you have no draft, and it's very, very difficult to be able to maintain that level of intensity for these 4 laps when you don't really have anybody to race other than yourself, the clock, the points, and the cranberry cores sauce hitting heavy on your stomach. Gringo Jamazik now down the other side of that hill. They will definitely now start to take recovery, and we can see that by their power bars just underneath their indicators. There's some good racing again there today. Liam Bard back in 14th position, just dropped off that second group by about 500 meters. He's currently riding alongside nobody at the moment. He's in no man's land, terrible place to be. A couple of 100 meters behind him and a few hundred meters in front of him before you see another rider. Wilkinson and Turner, will these guys work together, both from the same team, or from the R3R other team with in 2 different teams, race 3R and Nopinz? Or are they just trying to get rid of Guillaume from France? Are they trying to give Guillaume the guillotine and chop him from their little pack? Or is Guillotine chasing back on? Vespa, Careless Vespa, another great name in there as well. And Ostergaard from ACKD and Austin, one of the OTR riders, back in 20th and 21st position. And these are 200 meters from, these are 20th position. So if you remember last week, we saw the top 20 crossing really very, very close to these front riders, but currently they've got a 200 meter gap on group number 4, and they've got a 200 meter gap to group number 3, a 500 meter gap to group number 2, and then a 5 meter gap to group number 1. So you've almost got the 2 kilometer gap between position 2 and position 20 and position 1. David Blodgett did a huge amount of work last week. Again, he's one of those other riders who's currently sitting in no man's land. He's got to really try and chase down Austin and OTR, 100 meters ahead, got a couple of 100 meters behind him to any risers. Dulac and Lennox, we saw these two guys working together a little bit earlier on. Again, we can see these little gaps in between these little groups. So Lennox and Dulac have got 100 meters to be able to chase down Blodgett. And then we've got the likes of Haman, Nauagawa back, and Schmid in the group behind those back to the front, coming up to the end of lap 3, coming down the hill. Both of these guys now will be trying to get as much recovery in as they possibly can. Some of these riders will take a mid-race or somewhere through the race an energy gel to try and just help to fuel some of these little kickers, and this is a great time if you're going to think about taking any extra energy or any extra fuel into your racing strategy. This is a great time to do it. Coming into this area, you've got a little bit of recovery, you're getting your breath back, you're not going to choke yourself on your sweet cherry SIS gel. You'll be able to cough your way across the start finishing line for the start of the 4th and final lap. Mike Swart, great to see Mike actually being able to put some attacks in. We saw week 2 Mike desperately having to put attacks in just to hang on to the front group and then just gradually drop it up. But great to see Mike putting in some attacks and really taking it to the second group there today. John Beams, really good to see him back on full attacking duty, not so much in the front back but still chasing down position 3. So all these guys, believe it or not, even with the 600-meter gap to the front two, are all chasing for a place on the podium. And they will all be very aware of that because they'll be able to see that leaderboard on the left-hand side. After Zokhana decided to take an early bath, whether it was through technical failure or by choice, which would be very surprising knowing Zach. So there we can see crossing the line for the end of lap 3. We'll be hearing the bells, the sleigh bells for the Christmas period. Signing off the last lap of this 4-lap 4th round race in the Nopinz Super Series here on RGT. So what's going to happen in this second group? What's your predictions, guys? Are we going to see one of these guys make an early break in lap 4? Are we going to see them sticking together till the very, very last climb? Are we going to see a little breakaway group like we see in the front? What do you guys think? Are we going to see 2 or 3 riders break off the front of this and try and chase down that podium position? Or are all of them too similar in ability, too similar a strength to be able to break clear of the rest of the pack? Because that will take a kind of bit of effort. We might see some team tactics come in yet. Nopinz R3R have certainly got enough numbers to put in a concerted effort, but will they be able to pull it together and be able to do that? That's a great shot there, that helicopter shot there, just looking at how these riders are playing out across the whole of the road. Obviously the scenery in RGT doesn't actually match the roads that they're actually riding on, but it does give us an indication of, it kind of does look like real roads, and the roads that the guys are riding around will be much more suburban than this, but very difficult to reproduce a 3D environment like this in a short space of time. So RGT's got a really good compromise where you can completely recreate everything about the roads themselves, but just computer generates the scenery around it, and that gives a very realistic feeling. RGT just doesn't show these country scenery as well. There's a number of other sceneries, including urban sceneries. There's a desert as well, mountains, climbing, coastal ridge. So there's plenty of visual attraction in the platform. But these magic roads currently, which is a fantastic feature, show this very beautiful RGT rendered countryside. So second group, all looking a bit cagey. We've got blues, we've got green numbers, we don't really have any red numbers. Yes, it's a flat section, but this is a really good chance to start putting in just a bit of a little dig, getting prepared for these groups. And I'm surprised nobody's really having a little stab, having a little dodge, just kind of putting a bit of effort down, putting a bit of pressure down, just to see whether they can break the second group up and command that position for 3rd place. Apparently Gio has got bad Wi-Fi at home, which is a shame. That looks like Mrs. Gio. Thank you very much, Mel, for your message. That's a shame to see that bad Wi-Fi again when we're just talking about these technical failures. It's just one of those things that just blight these riders. They just don't have stable Wi-Fi in some places. And look at this off the front, Jan Mazik putting in, attacking. He's now got 31-meter gap on Gringo. Wow, this hasn't happened to Gringo yet. How is he going to respond? Is Gringo going to close it down? Looks like yes, that gap's coming down 25 meters, but both of them in the red. And this is on a 1.2% downslope, so Jamrasik putting in a bit on the downslope. Gringo, heart rate up at 183. 510 watts to close that gap down, but it looks like he's actually done it now. It'll be interesting to see how many matches Jamrasik's actually burned on that little attack, and how many matches Gringo has actually burned trying to catch back on. This is set up for a fantastic finish. 6.3 kilometers to go. We've got a little bit of uphill left to go, but we've got a lot of downhill to go before we hit this finish, as we can see on that road ahead. So who's going to put in that decisive attack on the incline before we descend back down to the start finish line? Who's your money on, guys? Today, this week, we are going to give our prize to the most attacking, combative rider, and we've certainly got 2 or 3 off the front there, but we've also got in the second group, we've also got quite a lot of attacks going on there. We've got a lot of work going off the front. John Beams there going off the front quite a lot. Felbala having probably his quietest race today. I don't think I've seen Rasmus be as quiet as he is. He's sitting in there today. Maybe last week he wasn't there because of injury or illness, and maybe he's just recovering to get back in there, but unusual not to see Rasmus up there with the front 3. Or front 2 now. Maybe he's just getting back into it. Maybe he's had a bit of a break. But I'm sure what we'll see next week, I'm sure we'll see Rasmus back to his full attacking best. Mike Swag doing what Mike Smart loves to do. Likes just to hang off the back, have a bit chill. Checking out the strips from the back. Looking at where his next Nopinz purchase is going to be. Is it going to be that beautiful blue, purple, dark blue, magenta, maroon, and every possible colour of pink and purple you can describe under the sun on the Nopinz jersey, or is it going to be one of the other jerseys? Now we can see some attacks coming in. Now we can see, look, the Nopinz guys, 2 or 3 of the Nopinz guys going up the road there with Clays, just as Matt Luger predicted. He predicted Clays to go up front there, and indeed he is doing. Maybe he's got a direct line to Wouter Clays. Good shout there, Matt. Matt's back on the chat again. It's going to be a close battle on the team front between Nopinz and Restart. Completely agree. This second group will probably dictate who's going to be kind of taking this, maybe taking the second place, to be fair. ECKD, Restart, Nopinz. This is going to be a really close one for the top. In the top 3, we've got Restart Racing and the Gold Platinum. It's 705 points. We've got ECKD second, well, joint top, and 705 points. And Nopinz R3R E-Racing team on 687 points at the moment. At the moment, in the front, we've got Jamrasik from Restart. We've got Gringo from Nopinz R3R, but we don't have anybody in the front group from ECKD. Felbala is the only rider we have from ECKD in that second pack, but look at the numbers that Restart have got. Look at the numbers that Nopinz have got as well. So I'm fairly sure that the points haul for Restart and Nopinz are going to outstrip those of ECKD, and be interesting to see who is going to take the top spot depending on where these guys finish off today. 100 points for the winner, going down from that. So there's a lot of points to be had, and even just 1 or 2 points, as we can see in these top positions, makes a massive difference to how these riders do. In the individual rider standings, currently Platinum Gold is Rasmus Felbala. Rasmus is currently leading with a 97 point finish, a 91 point finish, and a 100 point finish. But currently he's sitting there in the second group. Hendrik Harbol, his teammates, there in second place. David Blodgett from Restart. David's dropped down a little bit there today. And Gavash, where's Gavash today? Gavash not here today. I don't think I've seen Gavash. That's a shame, because Gavash is the Dirty Dan's strongest rider. And John Beams currently in fifth place from Pedalers. In the silver bronze, we've got Mike Swart, who's currently joint top with Jan Vanner. Mike Swart's there in that second group. Jan Vanner's, I think he's maybe in the 3rd or 4th group as well. So Mike may well increase his lead in the silver bronze category. Klaus Behring from ECKD and Bill Bonner from Nopinz. Neil Turner from Race 3R. in 5th place. GTR Gringo is currently in the silver bronze rider category with 200 points, but that's only from 2 races. Will he be taking 100 points today, or will he be taking 97 points home for the 2nd place? I think it's 97 points for the 2nd place finish. We'll find out in no time whatsoever. Fellbella now, nice to see Fellbella starting to put in a bit of attacks. Maybe he was just biding his time. Maybe Rasmus was just sitting there biding his time, waiting for the other guys to make their move and then about to hit his attack, and it looks like he's actually doing that there now. Although side Kederine's there in front. Dallaire, new name in the Restart Racing. He hasn't really shown very much over the last few races, but starting to put some effort in there now, which is good. John Beams always again up there and about, so we can just start to see that starting to just spread out a bit now. It's like a pace line now. Who's at the front of that pace line? It looks like it might be Dallaire maybe with Katerine. Some red little figures. We'll see these little snippets of red as they try and chase back through the gaps, a little bit of green and blue while they're recovering. Now again, John going into the red, going into that. He wants to close these 3 riders down. Stock Gleason there was putting out Lofev in the very start of the race. He's gone off on a little break, back to the front too. So 3.1 kilometers to go, 6.6% on this slope. Will we see a very definitive attack going up here, or will these guys just toy with each other for another little bit before they decide to put in an attack? Group number 2. Isn't that interesting? We've got 1 rider from ECKD, we've got 1 rider from Nopinz, we've got 1 rider from Restart, and we've got 1 rider from Peddlers and that up there. So just interesting to see how all these 4 top teams have all got strong riders in there, starting to get some backup now in Nopinz, R3R and the Restart. But this 2nd group has broken up a little bit. We can see some riders dropping up the back. It's great to see Rasmus Fellbella putting some in attacks, currently in the red zone. So Rasmus wants to break up these teams maybe, but with Nopinz with the numbers in tow, being able to take it to the front with Scott Gleason, who took an early lead in this race in lap 1, and he's currently leading out group 2. So Gringo and Jamazik, looking at there, they're definitely having a rest there. Just quickly flashed to those 2 on the leaderboard, and I could just see that they would just drop their powers down to 0.0 watts per kilogram. True freewheeling, very much trying to get a little bit of recovery, because they know that this next section that they're going to come up to is going to really decide who will take this win today. With only less than 2.2 kilometers to go, we can see them coming past all these back markers. One of the back markers desperately trying to chase him down, get on the back, get a draft, see whether they can hang on there and see whether they can get some extra points. Interesting, Christoph taking on those front 2. Good luck with that, lad. So in RGT, if you are lapped, the 2 things happen with that. Firstly is that your draft, the draft that you can carry chasing riders, is actually reduced. So this means that if you're a lapped rider, the likelihood of you being able to hang on to the coattails of these faster guys up front gets progressively less, as your draft is less than theirs would be. But to be fair, good effort, Christoph. Tried to get on the coattails of Gringo and Jamazik to get a couple of extra meters on his opposition. Good racing. Back to group 2. Jamazik now. Jamazik with an attack. Gringo recovers. Gringo responds. 2 in and fro, and they've got 1.4 kilometers to go. So they've got these back markers in the sights. This can be confusing for some of these races. You've got a back marker in, and sometimes you can get something called a sticky draft. That's something that RGT does not suffer from. So there is no sticky draft in RGT, where if you sit behind anybody, it tends to suck you in. RGT doesn't suffer from that. So if you don't have a draft, you don't get a draft. Simple as that. You have to work to keep it, you've got to work to get it, you've got to work to hold it. Back to the front, Jamazik now with yet another attack. 900 meters to go. Gringo now coming over the top, just easing off. These 2 are very definitely just having a little game to themselves. Jamazik again with attack. Which one of them is going to put in the decisive attack? Gringo responds yet again. Are we going to see them drop back down to the... Yeah, there we go, dropping back down again. They just really are having a little game with each other. One of these guys is going to put in a decisive attack, and the other one is not going to be respond. But the time and road is running out for both of them. We've got just over 400 meters to go, so this is where any attacks that are going to happen within the next 100 meters or so, I would think we're definitely going to see a sprint finish between these two guys. Who's your money on? I genuinely can't call this. So we've got 230 meters to go. There's the line. Look at them. They're not even in the red yet. They're not even in the red yet. Who's going to take it? Who's going to launch that attack first? Jamazik's in the yellow. Gringo goes for the attack. Is Jamazik going to respond? He does. But is he responding? Yeah, I can't believe how Gringo takes it on the line by Jamazik. I genuinely cannot believe how late those two guys left that sprint finish. I was fully expecting somebody to go for a 300-400 meter output, but no. Literally 10 meters from the line, Gringo decides to put it out. Felbella, after having a relatively quiet ride so far, deciding that he's had enough, he's taken it to the pack. This chasing pack has got 400 meters to go. These are chasing for third position. This is for a podium pace. John Beams, great to see him working up there. Mike Swartz up there as well. Scott Gleason, he put a lot of work in there. That's second in the second, well, and Felbella as well. So we've got Gleason, Smart, Felbella, Beams, all chasing down that podium position, I think. Who's going to get it between these four? Who's going to get it? Gleason pips on the line from Felbella. I think Beams just managed to pip Swart to the line as well, and we can see that second group all just coming in across the line. Well, that was a fantastic finish of this race. What a fantastic sprint finish we saw. Well, a sprint finish we saw. Let's have a bit of a cruise. Let's have a bit of cruise. Oh, go on then, let's have a sprint finish then, said Gringo. It was kind of almost a bit of a gentleman's agreement there between Gringo and Jamazik, but I'm fairly sure that there was no money changed hands. Maybe a couple of chocolate Santas, but certainly no hard cash. But it was a great finish anyway. But second group, what a fantastic race we saw there, and a fantastic finish. Felbella almost managing to put in a decisive attack at the end, but Scott Gleason, who was very aggressive in the first part of the race, managed to take the sprint finish, just pipping him on the line with some great finishes. So Jan Vanner there coming up, who's currently chasing Mike Swart in the silver bronze category, about to finish off. With all of the races that we could see, Walter Clays coming across the line, he put a good little attack in on lap 3 to try and break that group up, just as Matt Lucker predicted. And we're now so there's Gio, who was unfortunate to have a Wi-Fi drop down in 14th place. So to come in 14th after a Wi-Fi drop is actually very good. Very sad to see, but he's recovered well and he's done well to actually get himself into a reasonable position, and hopefully that will get him some decent points there. So well done, Gio. Well done with your Wi-Fi, with your technical. Be interesting to see what happened to Zach. Zach just disappeared off the face of the Isle of Man vista from absolutely being in the front 3 and having a good chance to certainly a podium position without a shadow of a doubt, to side of the road, head in his hands, wondering what went wrong. Gio just coming up, finishing off their 40th position, chasing down one of the lapping one of Weiler John. So some of these riders have still got another lap to go. Liam Bard there on the right hand side, kind of coming in. Liam did a huge amount of work at the very start of that race. So Liam was absolutely vital at breaking that front group down very early on. Did a fantastic bit of work doing that. So we can see that front group whittled down from the 70 odd riders that we had to begin with down to half of that by the time we got to even the end of the first kicker, I think, by the looks of it. So Liam did his job very well. Now kind of just cruising in at a paltry 315 watts to come over in 15th place. Following him are Blodgett and Turner. Turner just coming in there, just a couple of 100 meters ahead of Blodgett. So Neil Turner, one of the R3R riders, had a good race last week, as all the Nopinz and R3R guys did, with a very aggressive attacking stance they had. Blodgett looking at red numbers, he's wanting to know whether he can track down that, but let's just go over to Blodgett, Wilkinson, Gakes. This could be a great sprint finish here. So Blodgett's on the front of this 3. Oh, Gakes with a great finish. Can Wilkinson take it? We've got a 4 race finish. Gates with a great sprint by Gakes, taking it from Ostergaard. then Wilkinson, then Blodgett. Good finish again, that small group. So as you can see, all these races are certainly not kind of taking it easy. Pedersen just managing to take his colleague Brask on the line. Vesper, I think, might have just sneaked Brask. Oh, what happened there, Brask? What happened? That side looks like he might have had a little bit of a technical coming into the line. John Routledge coming up in 25th place. And Griffiths coming up in 26th as well. So some of these groups have just split up, and little attacks, and no doubt happening on those last little few light inclines. Ryan Miller, R3R, one of the American riders there. Quite a good American contingency in this series, as well as the Brits. There's quite a good French contingency as well, and of course the CKD riders from Denmark, which are a very strong team. Melenix and Dulac, these guys have been head to head for the whole of this race. Let's just see if we can watch the conclusion of these two, because these two have literally been holding hands from lap 1, I think, position 28, 29. Have they got anybody else who's going to be chasing them down? No. These two guys have definitely got it. Let's just see what happens to their finish. Dulac in the red, Lennox coming up into the red. Is Lennox just sitting, waiting, ready to pounce? Or is Dulac going to put in a big enough effort and sustain this 5.6 watts per kilogram to be able to hold on for the win? Lennox, I think, being the heavier rider, just manages to put down the power on those last few meters, just to pinch and snatch that 28th position from Dulac. Good ride though. Austin, one of the OTR riders, coming in 30th position. Teammate of Kevin Barkley, Paul Prudel, who's on the dev team. OTR not the strongest of showings there today. They are currently chasing down the ECKD team in the silver bronze category, and I think, looking at today's results, I think ECKD probably did outpoint them again. So final results coming up on the screen there now. So we can see on the left, we can see the names of the rider, the time difference, and then the watts per kilogram that they put out as average throughout the race, and we can see a huge spread there. So 3 weeks in a row, GTR Gringo takes the win, but today certainly didn't have it easy at all. Great to see Daniel Jamasic back in the mix, really taking it to Gringo, put in some good attacks, and it was that just last little 100 meters really that sorted out those two guys. Scott Gleason was attacking from the start. Rasmus Falbala worked hard as well in the race towards the end. Mike Swart, great result for restart. John Beam's pedalers, great to see John being more aggressive today, putting in some good attacks. And then as we can see going down, Melvin Dallaire, a new name to the racing scene for us in this series, racing for restart. Sad Ketterine from Nopinz, as well as Bill Bennar. Lukas Klemazowski didn't have a heart rate, so undoubtedly they would feature in the final results. I'm fairly sure that Ivany will take 10th position. Huda Clays for Moonriders, the only real Moonriders rider to show there today, coming in 12th, without her putting in some good attacks in the very end there. And we can see the bottom right there, Tim Cook, who went off like an absolute bullet at the start of that race. I think that's probably the fastest start I have ever seen in an RGT race. I'm fairly sure it took him by surprise. I'd love to know what he was pulling while he was seconds to go on that finish line. But I'm fairly sure he's not putting in the same amount of watts as he crosses the finishing line there today. Jan Vanna doing well in the individual races. Nicholas Guillot sadly had a Wi-Fi dropout, but good to come in 14th place. Liam Bart from Nopinz R3R, good start. Neil Turner, Tom Giggs there, so a great finish by Tom. Tom being one of the strongest draft riders representing draft. Anders Osgaard, Wilkinson, Blodgett topping out our top 20 riders. Coming down the field, we've got Pedersen from ECKD, Kayla's Vespa, still love that name. Vim Brask, Vigneault, John Routledge, Griffiths, Rob Miller, Mark Lennox, Philip Dulac. Great little battle between Dulac and Lennox there. Oh, there's Zach Horner there, finally coming in 36th position. So I reckon Zach must have had. I didn't actually see what happened to Zach, so I've got a feeling that Zach must have had a technical somewhere, whether he had a dropout or whether he had a Wi-Fi drop. He's obviously been able to stay on course but for some reason has obviously dropped right off that. We didn't actually obviously just missed him as we flicked between the groups, so that's very unfortunate for Zach, because he was in a great position to put in some attacks. And there's some more OTR guys coming in. They're Walker, lapping, Lund, so we can just see even these top 40 riders are managing to lap some of the riders down the field. But remember, some of these riders down the field will have entered this race without a team. They would have just signed up, got themselves into a racing position, just to really have a race on RGT, which is always a great experience, but not as strong as some of these very experienced, very, very well trained riders that we can see in this front two groups. And it just shows the gulf in some of these riders. So some of these riders coming in as individuals, fancy the chances, coming into these races, just seeing the gulf in the ability of some of the riders. And this is where riding ability, strength, tactics to an extent, the ability to recover really does show on these virtual platforms. Tactics does play a part, doesn't quite have as much a part to play as some of the real life riding. You don't have that real draft experience, although the work rate is very similar, but you can really see those riders who have just are at the absolute top of their game with some of the results and some of the efforts that these guys put in. You probably don't watch it on the screen, you just cannot appreciate the amount of effort. Seeing the riders on the Zoom cam gives you a good effort. Walker there putting in a good sprint finish. Can he take Dinnan? There's only a few meters to the line. It's going to be close. Is he going to peg him back? Oh, what a great little tete-a-tete that was, Walker. I think Walker thought he had it. He thought, yeah, got it. Got him, Dinnan. Got you, mate. Great finish by Dinnan. Manxman as well, by the looks of it. Manxman, Dinner, the Manxman. Finishing off to a good finish there. Stop balls, hopefully he didn't have a stop balls off somewhere around the course for a kind of a, what is the local delicacy in Isle of Man? What does, if you live in the Isle of Man, Matt, tell me what is the kind of the delicacy of food of the Isle of Man? I don't know myself. Up to 41st position. So we're now starting to see these riders coming in dribs and drabs. You can just see the top right hand corner, all these individual dots. Aaron Carper down into 65 RPM, so he's just having a wee little cruise into the line. One colour, come on Aaron, you've got a kilometre to go yet. Don't be taking it easy yet. Come on, you've still got the chance. You know, you never know, Van might catch you up if he puts in a good effort. So let's not just tap it in there, let's put a bit of effort in. Let's finish this race strong. Couple of ECKD riders coming in 42-43, Helvig and Fam tapping it in, again getting winning points for their team. Points just accumulate for the more riders that you can get across the line in a position, so any position is worth racing for. Even that 1 point we can see can make the massive difference, and we can see that currently in the top of the Go Platinum League, where currently the top two teams are separated by nil points. So Restart with 705, ECKD 705, and Nopinz with Gringo on a winning streak, slowly crawling up the field. They're now on 687 points, but that's going to change today. Be interesting to see how many points difference we go into the new year with these riders. So we'll see the rest of this field coming in. We've got top 40 home already. I doubt very much whether we'll see all the way down to position 77, but we'll certainly get down to Burez, who's in 44th position for the moment, and then we start to get into the riders who may well have been lapped by these front guys. So Vam and Helvig, be interested to see whether there's a bit of inter-team or a bit of intra-team competition here. Will either of these twos go for the sprint finish, or will they just tap it home together? Freewheeling Helvig, definitely kind of showboating there to the camera, freewheeling in. Burez, I think that's a Cuban flag, correct me if I'm wrong, with another very zigzaggy, very colourful shirt, not too dissimilar to the Nopinz shirt, nowhere near as sexy, obviously. Coming in for 44th position, and again, more points on the board, whether it's for him individually or whether it's for his team, I don't know, but good to see him coming in. One name we didn't see on the road today there, we did not see Wheel Sucker today, who was back again last week and who put in some good work last week. We didn't see Wheel Sucker again this week, so Wheel Sucker unfortunately will be dropping down these leagues. There's two rides he's put in, so he's made a ride, missed a ride, made a ride, missed a ride. Maybe he'll be back next week. Maybe it's his turn to babysit this week. Maybe he's back on non-babysitting duties next week and would be back in the starting lineup. It's great to see that a lot of these riders have actually completed all of the races so far. So in the platinum gold position, certainly the top 9 races that I have on my score sheet here have all completed 3 races. And the silver bronze, 7 of the top 10 have completed 3 of the current 4 races. And we can see there today Swart has completed his 4th, Vanna, Bill Bonner, Neil Turner, Gringo, Zach Harner completed, Kevin Barkley, Kellis Vesper, they all completed there today, so they have got a full complement of races. Fellbeller there with again a good solid result. No Hendrik Highball today. Hendrik obviously not available to race there today. Bludgett, good result. Gavash not there today either. John Beams, Tom Gakes, Matt Lucker not available today. Hedderdam, didn't see Hedderdam today. Doug Hart and Pedersen was there as well. So we'll see quite a bit of shuffling at the top of the Platinum Gold League today, but I'm fairly sure Fellballer will be heading that league comfortably. Whether Mike Swart will continue to take that front position in the silver bronze, I think he will. I think he probably will be outstripping Jan Vanna with points, although Gringo will be slowly closing up with his maximum points again today, but not enough to overcome Mike, who's currently leading the silver bronze category. Christensen coming in P48, P52, sorry, to finish off his race. And again, huge numbers for the ECKD team. They must have a massive team, these guys, and it's great to see such a massive presence on RGT. Having a team presence on any platform is always great for racing, because you're pretty much guaranteed that there's going to be some form of team tactics. Most of these teams will use some form of electronic communication to identify what tactics they're going to use. Most of the teams use Discord, which is open source free software to allow teams to communicate with each other during a race, but also have a communication forum as well where they can talk to each other. So that pretty much wraps up the finishing basis for today's race. We've got these last few riders coming in. We've got another 20 or so riders out on the course. No doubt be finishing off, and we will see all of these results coming up very, very soon. And we shall see the points changing over the next couple of days. So, final finishing results. So, as we can see, that top 20, so Gringo leading it up all the way down to Peter Rosson there in 30th position. Huge amount of variance in watts per kilogram depending on the weight of the ride and the power they're putting out. But every single one of these riders putting in good efforts. 4.93 for Jamrzik, that's a big effort. Anything nearing 5 watts per kilogram is a big effort. Nicholas Gio there, who had the Wi-Fi drop out, 4.82. So Nicholas obviously had a big drop and then has had to put in a huge amount of work to pull that back in. So very great effort there by Nicholas to pull it up all the way down there to Peter Rosson, even 3.44. Philip Dulac, 4.19. So certainly nobody's taking it easy this week. So again, great racing this week. It was just a great attacks. Matt Lucker, Nopinz R3R rider, predicted this today with a breakaway taking the lead, which obviously happens in real life, this being his local race circuit, and he was exactly right. So Matt Lucker was bang on with his predictions of a breakaway when we saw the 3 riders take it up to the front, and then sadly we lost Zach Harner somewhere on the 4th lap, I believe, back down into 36th position, allowing the front 2 of Jamrzik and Gringo to chase it out head to head. Won by Gringo with a 2.5 centimeter sprint finish from Jamrzik. That's probably been the quickest inch in the whole of Gringo's life on RGT so far anyway, but it was a good inch. So next week, what do we have in store for us next week? I will just finish off seeing the results in Fleming back there down in the position. Fleming was really strong last week. Tim Cook, who was the kind of the RGT Bullet, new nickname for Tim, coming out of the front of that pack like an absolute missile. He certainly was the Manxman missile today, coming out the front of the start. Down through all of these, some of these races will have teams, some of these races won't. So what do we have in store for you guys next week? Next week we have the South Moulton to Barnstaple. We saw Barnstaple feature already so far, and we can see this is a long, winding course. Only 231 kilometers next week, which is about the third of the elevation that we saw this week, but the distance is very similar. So I'm fairly sure, like last week, this point-to-point race will see very similar features. No doubt we'll see a big pack chasing down to begin with, and then on these little kickers there we'll see small elevations. We'll see these attacks happen to try and break this pack down. So come and join us next week for another series race in the Nopinz Super Series on RGT. We will be here next Monday, same time, same place, 7 PM. So would love you to join us. Don't be afraid to leave a message in our Facebook chat. We'd love to hear from you, whether it's today's result, whether it's the tactics that you used today, whether it's wanting to get involved, or whether it's just wanting to leave any messages to any of your racers in any of the team. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Christmas break. Happy New Year to everybody. Enjoy your celebrations this Friday night. Be safe, be secure, get out on your bike, get that 500 miles under your belt, and we will see you next Monday night at 7 PM.